In the video that you're about to see, a man born in 1860 will tell you about his experiences working at Thomas Edison's laboratory in 1879. His name was Francis Jehl, and before working for Edison that year, he studied chemistry and worked as an assistant in a law office. 1879 was a very busy and important time for Edison and his team, because in October of that year, they first demonstrated a working light bulb that lasted 13.5 hours, thus making it very practical for everyday use. Later that year, these light bulbs, called filament light bulbs at the time, became commercially available to the public. As you watch Mr. Jehl speak in the video, you will notice that he is in a laboratory. This was not the original laboratory that he and Edison had worked at in 1879. Edison and his team first began working in the small town of Edison, New Jersey, up until around 1887, after of which they moved about 25 miles northeast to West Orange, New Jersey, where Edison had worked for the remainder of his career. The laboratory Mr. Jehl is speaking from is actually a replica of the original facility from the 1870s and located in Dearborn, Michigan. It was Edison's good friend, Henry Ford, that had made the efforts to reconstruct it in 1929. And a lot of Edison's original equipment and experimental apparatuses were transferred to this new laboratory in an attempt to make it resemble the original facility as much as possible. And it still stands today as a historical landmark. So without any more delay, let us get into watching this amazing video footage. The year of the recording was 1932.
This is a replica of our old organ that we had at Menlo Park. The original was taken to Orange when Edison left the Menlo Park laboratory, and there in the fire of 1914 was burned. But it is a perfect replica of the old organ. It was given to Mr. Edison by Hilborn Roosevelt, an organ manufacturer in those days, and by the way, he was the uncle of President Roosevelt. Here, during our midnight lunch, Edison would often ask one of the boys to play one of the tunes that were played in those days, like My Grandfather's Clock, Up in the Balloon, and so on, Nearer My God to Thee, and Rocks of Ages, songs like that. I know Edison himself used to play there. He operated on the pick and hunt system, but he could play that Nearer My God to Thee very nice. Then, after the lunch, when the music stopped, work went on again. Work and the experiments that were conducted then at that time were interesting. Why we worked through the night. It happened that we worked often 2-3 days in succession. If anyone got tired or exhausted, why we did as Edison did. We pushed aside some of the instruments on the table and took a nap. No one ever said anything. But if anyone began to snore, that was beyond the limit of toleration. At first, we quelled the snoring by giving the patient a good dose of ammonia, concentrated spirits of ammonia. Then later on, when some new boys were added to the staff, one of them made a contraption which we call a corpse reviver. I'm going to show you that corpse reviver because it belongs to Edisonian history. You see, here it is, and that was placed on the table where the man was sleeping, and all of a sudden, well, that stopped snoring, and it was a very effective instrument. Something about that instrument seems to take the ladies that come here and see it. For many of them have asked me confidentially, where can I procure one? Won't you go and try the organ? Charlie, will you please go and pump?